One of the most important parts of any Assassin's Creed and hell, just any AAA single player game in general really, is the map design and the setting, which generally sort of tie the whole game together and can have a lot to say as to whether the game is good or not, regardless of the gameplay and the combat and all of those other mechanics. Because of that, today we're going to be taking a look at everything you need to know about the map in Assassin's Creed Shadows. Now, the first thing I wanted to touch on is actually about my own playtime, as I was lucky enough to get hands-on with the game for about 4 hours back in the middle of Jan, and there were a few things that I mentioned, as well as some of the footage that I recorded that you can see in the background actually shows off the entire map as well. So first and foremost, here is a quick overview of the entire map. Now keep in mind it does have the, I guess, fog of war, so you can't technically see all of the areas in great detail because we were only allowed to go into one single region of this map because obviously it was a very early hands-on preview. But here is a quick look at essentially the entire map with that fog of war enabled. Now here's also me zooming in on one of the regions. This is the region that we played in, and this is where I had explored so far, and so that's a bit of context, I guess, as to how big each area is. As you can see, when it zooms in, it's still pretty damn big. The map that we got to play on, the area of the map I should say, was pretty damn massive, and we didn't really get to explore the whole thing even in 4 hours. I know a few of the guys there did manage to go around essentially that whole area, but yeah, it felt pretty damn big. And as you can see, with now the context of how big the overall map is, it does feel like it's going to be a pretty damn big map. Now, through a few interviews and stuff like that, we can sort of start piecing together the actual size of the map. There was an interview with one of the producers of the game who mentioned that the map is apparently relatively similar in scale to Assassin's Creed Origins map, which is obviously Egypt. And we know that that map was roughly 80 square kilometers. Now, you can see here a list of all the map sizes so far from pretty much every single Assassin's Creed game. This was from a DG VFX video on YouTube, so be sure to go and check that video out. But as you can see from the list, it's pretty much scaling from the top being the smallest to the bottom of that list being the biggest ones, and Origins is essentially the fourth biggest. That would make Shadows roughly fourth or fifth biggest on this list. And also keep in mind that Black Flag is kind of skewed because that's the entire Caribbean area, which that's including the water and stuff too. So Black Flag was not nearly that big. It was probably around the size of those earlier games too, when you account for the water. So Shadows is definitely going to be up there with the biggest. It's not nearly as big as the maps were in Odyssey and Valhalla, or actually, to be honest, it's pretty damn close to Valhalla, but it's not nearly as big as the Odyssey size map, which I think most people are probably pretty damn excited about. Now, in terms of some of the regions that we know of as of right now, and from the actual footage that I recorded, these are the only regions that we saw. Now, whether they were hiding any or there's just other areas that we may be able to get to or whatever, I'm not too sure, but as of my own footage, these are the regions that are available, and apologies in advance for butchering the pronunciation of these regions with my dumbass Aussie accent. So the regions we know are the Harima region, the Yamashiro region. We also have Tamba, the Wakasa region, as well as Omi. I believe it's pronounced Iga, but I could be wrong there. And then we also have Yamato and Izumi Setsu as the final regions of the map. Now, like I showed before, when you zoom in on a region, it will also then kind of have other little, I guess you would say, suburbs within those regions, and there's obviously a lot of different points of interest. So those aren't the only like key areas. There might be some regions that have like 2 cities within them and stuff like that, but those are just the overarching regions that we know. Now, before we go any further, if you guys are interested in more Assassin's Creed Shadows content and you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. There is plenty more content on the way, so make sure you don't miss out. Now, something else that I thought was very much worth mentioning is that it seems like they have kind of reduced the typical Ubisoft open world elements in this game. Now, if you guys don't know what I mean by that, often Ubisoft games get kind of ridiculed for the way that they handle their open worlds. They are very handholdy. They're very much like a checklist at times, where it's kind of like go and do this, this, and this, and then come back to the character, and it will mark the exact locations you need to be, therefore kind of removing the actual open world exploration for yourself, because everything is kind of marked, and even when it's not part of a quest already, it does sometimes feel like every single point of interest is just like already marked on the map, and it leaves very little room for exploration and actually uncovering cool little secrets yourself. Now, they have drastically changed the way that works in Assassin's Creed Shadows. There are a lot less markers around the place. In fact, there were pretty much none other than like the actual regions and the cities and stuff like that. But the good thing is, for those that do enjoy having markers and having stuff to point you in certain directions, you can still get that stuff through a bit of further digging too. So if you do enjoy having markers all over the place, that doesn't actually affect you guys too much, because you can still do that. There's just almost a few extra steps to getting that, if that makes sense. It's also worth mentioning that the viewpoints in this game don't work quite the same as they have in previous Assassin's Creed games. They don't just like unlock every single thing on the map in that area that you're in. Instead, it will allow you to sort of like ping a location that you can see in the distance. So it will mark the points of interest. And as you can see here, like as you scan around the area, you can kind of see some areas that are interesting to go to, I guess. And at that point, you can kind of ping those locations for yourself and then head on over, rather than it just simply unlocking them and putting all of those markers on the map at the same time. Now, also when it comes to, for example, like side missions and stuff like that, there is a new system called the Scout system, and that will allow you to actually hone in on certain areas where you need to find a specific location, so a specific building or something like that. Like I said, it won't just mark it on the map straight away. I'm sure there'll be some missions where that's the case, but for the most part, on any missions where it's kind of like an investigation or a mystery, it'll just mark a rough region. And in fact, it won't even mark it. It will just tell you up in the top left, like the thing you need to find is in this region. It's over in the southwest of that region, and maybe one extra little clue there. And that's really all you know initially. Now, the Scout system allows you to actually kind of hone that in a little bit more so that you can find a closer, I guess, more tight region as to where the thing you're looking for might be, therefore making it a lot less of a sort of pain in the ass. You don't have to go looking through like an entire city for the single thing you're looking for. It will give you a much smaller area while still not just pinpointing the exact item, for example. To me, this did make the exploration of the map a lot better because it kind of leaves it up to you a little bit more, while with the Scout system, it does also allow you to kind of, it's almost like a hint, I guess. You can use the Scouts and they'll kind of like point you in the right direction, or if you enjoy that mystery and the problem solving side of it, you can just do it the way that the game sort of intends initially. Now, something else that is definitely worth noting when it comes to the map is that there are obviously dynamic seasons in this game as well as dynamic weather, and that's something that's going to make the map feel very different, even though it's not really changing too much throughout each season. Now, I don't necessarily know as of right now how the seasons are going to work, if they're just going to sort of change over a period of time. So even, for example, if you spent 100 hours just doing laps around the first city, I don't know if that means that the seasons will change 4 times in that 100 hours, or if the seasonal changes are more tied to the actual story. So once you get to, say, like the 5th mission, maybe that's when it will like kick into winter or something. I'm not too sure how that works as of just now, and I don't think they've clarified that, but please do correct me in the comment section if that's wrong. I just haven't actually seen them talking about the specifics of that too much as of right now. Now, on top of the dynamic seasons though, there is also dynamic weather, which will just sort of change throughout each day, as well as obviously day and night cycles, which is pretty common. And so something else that will make the map feel a little bit different at times is that sometimes it'll be really calm and sunny, whereas sometimes it'll randomly just be rainy or foggy or windy. And although that doesn't seem like too big of a thing, it does make those areas feel very different. And I think it just kind of keeps everything feeling a little bit nicer and fresher. Now, the last thing that I wanted to mention is to do with the graphics, and I think it's fair to say this game is absolutely gorgeous. I want to mention from the gameplay that you're watching, this is like heavily compressed because they actually gave us essentially a terabyte worth of like recording. This is our own recorded gameplay, but 4 hours equaled roughly a terabyte based on the settings that they had and all that sort of stuff. And that was way too big for my internet to download. So I actually asked them to compress it quite a bit, and then they sent that to me, and then I've downloaded it and now obviously rendered it out myself. And I've only rendered it in 1080p because that's what they sent it to me in. And so the gameplay that you're watching, even though I still think it looks pretty decent, this is like heavily compressed from the actual 4K ultra settings that we were playing in. And I have to say, when I was actually sitting there playing it, I would say this is the best looking game I've ever played by like quite a bit. Now, keep in mind, it's not like all the games in the past that I've played have been played in 4K. So I know there's a lot of games that I have played that might have looked a lot better if I, for example, maybe wasn't playing them on a console or something. But even now, primarily having switched to PC myself, I still think this is probably easily the best game that I've ever played in terms of the graphics. Now, that's, at least to me, fairly rare for Ubisoft. I don't think they've ever really been known for like amazing graphics. They've always been good. But with that being said, I think in the last 2 to 3 years, they have really stepped that up, because Avatar Frontiers of Pandora was also one of the best looking games that I've ever played. And then even Star Wars Outlaws last year, the character like models and stuff didn't look that great, but the actual environmental design looked really, really good in that game too. So it does seem as though they're putting a lot more effort in more recent years into the actual look of their games. Again, not that they ever looked bad, but they always just kind of looked about an 8 out of 10 on the scale of graphics. Whereas, yeah, in the last few years, they're honestly getting closer to like a 9 or a 10 out of 10 when it comes to at least environmental graphics. I do think that their character models and stuff can sometimes still look a little bit underwhelming for how good the rest of their games look, but yeah, I have to say the graphics of this game, and specifically the environmental graphics, looked absolutely phenomenal. But that is it for pretty much everything that you need to know about the map in Assassin's Creed Shadow, guys. If there's anything I missed, be sure to leave it down in the comment section. And like I said, if you are new to the channel and you're interested in more Assassin's Creed content, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.